Okay, so the characters in Othello, you can go through this in the slideshow that I have on my website as well. But you have two main people. So the first person is Othello, and he is a lieutenant. So he has his sword, and he is a general, a captain of the army, and he is very well liked by everyone. Everyone adores him. He is a Moor. He is African in terms of color, and he talks about how he was kidnapped as a child and how he later converted to Christianity, which is pretty important in and of itself because it is quite unique. And they make a lot of comments at the beginning how even though he has dark skin, he is fair, he is loyal, he is pure. Obviously, we do have to remember that this is in a time period that it was written in where characters were not treated equally because of their skin color. And so he actually defies that because everyone appreciates him and values him so much. And he is wildly in love with the beautiful Desdemona, who is Caucasian. And this is quite remarkable, especially for the time period, that he would end up in love with an individual who was white and who loves him back. And actually, there's really no barriers to their love other than her father, Brabantio, who doesn't agree because they got married without his permission, which is a big deal back in the 1600s. So they love each other, they have a great time. Unfortunately, Desdemona's father, Brabantio, does not. He's not happy about this, mostly because they didn't ask him to get married. And so he kind of is a little bit angry at this and feels that Desdemona betrayed him because Othello and Desdemona got married in secret. So Othello has a couple of close friends. Okay, so one of his friends is Michael Cassio. And Cassio is basically like a great guy. He's happy. He's super helpful. He has a brief romantic, if you will. It's not really love, but he has a kind of fling with Bianca, who is actually a prostitute. So he kind of has a romantic liaison with Bianca, but of course he says, no, I would have never actually married her because she's a prostitute. But that's kind of his love interest. Michael Cassio knows Desdemona. They're great friends. She asks Othello to reinstate Michael Cassio when him and Cassio get into a fight. He is great friends with Othello as well until that fight occurs, and Othello is really upset that Michael Cassio would get into a fight. But Desdemona says, oh, I'll help you out and get back into Othello's good graces. He's just a genuinely good guy, but he's pretty naive. The other individual that Othello is close to is Iago. And Iago is a devious character because he appears to be good, but he's in reality actually a horrible person. And his whole goal throughout the film is to basically ruin Othello's life. But he doesn't really have any good reasons. He kind of mentions that maybe Othello slept with his wife. Maybe it's because he promoted Michael Cassio over Iago. But he doesn't really have a reason. He also talks about how he just does it to spite Othello. Iago is actually married to a woman named Emilia. And Emilia is lovely, and she is the lady in waiting. So the maid, personal caregiver and attendant to Desdemona. So they are pretty close. Emilia does seem to love her husband. Iago does not care for her. He doesn't treat her nicely. He doesn't talk to her nicely. So Emilia tries to be a good wife, but basically Iago wants nothing to do with her. He also accuses her of being unfaithful, but has no proof. So there's a lot going on. Iago tries to break up Othello and Desdemona. And he does that by trying to make Othello jealous. And he says, Michael Cassio is not only good friends with Desdemona, there's also a love interest there. That's what Iago is saying. It's all his theory that actually Michael Cassio and Desdemona are having an affair. Othello doesn't want to believe this, but then he does believe this because Iago kind of tricks Michael Cassio into talking about this woman that he's been with, and Michael Cassio is talking about Bianca, but Othello thinks he's talking about Desdemona. So he gets really annoyed and angry, and he thinks Desdemona has cheated on her. And all of a sudden, he's like, nope, I don't love you anymore. Desdemona's like, why? What's happening? And Othello is basically angry at her and thinks that she's cheating on him even when she isn't. She's innocent and naive and a perfect example of an innocent victim. But Othello ends up actually becoming greatly angry with her. And eventually, Othello murders his wife. And then when Emilia finds out and tells him the truth, Iago ends up murdering Emilia. Iago attempts to kill Michael Cassio, but fails, so he's just wounded. Brabantio dies later on because he's kind of like grief-stricken that his daughters abandoned him. Othello tries to kill Iago, but fails, and ultimately Othello kills himself. So there's a lot of death going on at the end of the play. And this is where he's wounded, and so is he, but he is sent to jail to basically be tortured until eternity. And that is, in essence, the play.